My name is Holly Myers. I am 32 years old, and I work as a geologist in Denver, Colorado. 3 months ago, my parents sold my grandfather's ranch in Enid, Oklahoma, for $620,000. They split the money with my brother Garrett. They told me Grandpa didn't leave a will. They told me there was nothing left for me. What they didn't check, what none of them thought to check, was what was underneath that land. Because my grandfather did leave a will. And in that will, he separated one thing from the property before he died. The mineral rights. He left them to me. Only me. The geological survey came back at $4.7 million. Lithium. Sitting right below the ranch my parents thought they sold. Here is how a $620,000 betrayal turned into a $4.7 million inheritance. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories. This is the channel where everyday people find the courage to stand up for what is theirs. Not with anger, but with principle and proof. If you have ever been cut out by the people who were supposed to protect you, this story is for you. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. The ranch sat 11 miles south of Enid on a 2-lane road that smelled like cut wheat in summer and iron in winter. 200 acres, red clay soil, a creek that dried up in August and ran muddy in April. A barn that leaned slightly east, same direction as the wind. My grandfather Cal Myers built that place from nothing, bought the first 80 acres in 1971 with money he saved driving grain trucks. Added the rest over 40 years of quiet, steady work. He never took a vacation. He never bought a new truck when the old one still ran. He put every spare dollar into the land. I spent every summer there from the time I was 6 until I left for college at 18. Most kids would have been bored. Flat ground, no neighbors for a mile, nothing but sky and dirt. But Grandpa Cal made the dirt interesting. He would crouch down in the field, scoop up a handful of red clay, and hold it out to me. See this, Holly girl? Most people look at dirt and see nothing, but there is a whole world under here. I would dig my fingers into the soil until the red packed under my fingernails. I loved that. The stain lasted for days. My brother Garrett played football in the yard. My parents praised his spiral. I sat with Grandpa and sorted rocks by color and grain size. My parents rolled their eyes. She is going to be a scientist, Grandpa told my mother once at dinner. My mother laughed. She is going to be difficult. Grandpa Cal died on a Tuesday in March. By Friday, my parents were already making plans. The funeral was on a Saturday. 70 people in a church that seated 90. Grandpa Cal knew everyone in Garfield County, and most of them showed up wearing boots and pressed shirts. I almost missed it. My mother called me on Thursday night, 2 days before the service. I was on a project site in western Colorado, 3 hours from the nearest airport. She said she forgot. She said things had been hectic. She said it like she was telling me the grocery store was out of milk. I drove through the night, caught a 6:15 flight out of Grand Junction, landed in Oklahoma City, rented a car, and made it to the church 14 minutes after the service started. My mother did not save me a seat. After the burial, the family gathered at the ranch. I walked through the house while everyone else ate casserole in the yard. Grandpa's bedroom smelled like cedar and pipe tobacco. His desk was clean, too clean. There used to be a small cedar box on the right corner. Dark wood, brass latch, barely bigger than a cigar box. He kept it locked for as long as I could remember. The box was gone. I found my mother in the kitchen. "Where is Grandpa's cedar box? The one from his desk." She waved a hand without looking at me. "Just old junk. Your father threw it out." I looked at her face. She was lying. I had seen that exact expression 1,000 times. Chin slightly lifted, eyes focused somewhere past my left ear. In the hallway, Garrett grabbed my arm. "Don't make this about you, Holly. Just let Mom grieve." I pulled my arm free and said nothing. "Let me tell you about the Myers family, because you need to understand the pattern before you understand the betrayal. There were 2 children, Garrett, the oldest at 35, me, 3 years younger. To my parents, Garrett was proof that they had done something right. He played football. He stayed in Enid after high school. He married a girl from church. He worked at the farm supply store until it closed, then started a landscaping business that never quite turned a profit. None of that mattered. Garrett stayed. That was the currency in our house. I was the problem. I asked too many questions. I read books that nobody else in the family had heard of. I applied for scholarships without telling anyone because I knew my mother would say I was being dramatic. I got into the University of Oklahoma on a full academic ride. My mother's response, "Well, I hope you are happy, because your father and I certainly are not going to pay for it." I had not asked them to. My father signed whatever my mother put in front of him. He always had. Dale Myers was a man who believed that silence was the same as peace. He sat in his recliner, watched the Weather Channel, and let Brenda run the family like a corporation where she was the only executive. I used to call home on the old kitchen landline, a wall-mounted phone with a curly cord that my grandfather had installed in 1983. My mother would answer, talk for 40 seconds about Garrett's football game or Garrett's new truck or Garrett's wife's pregnancy, then say she had to go. "You left, Holly. Garrett stayed." That was my father's explanation for everything, a single sentence he delivered like a closing argument. I did not know yet what they were planning, but I should have seen it coming. 3 weeks after the funeral, my phone rang at 7:42 in the morning. Denver time. My mother never accounted for the time difference. "Holly, I need to tell you something about your grandfather's estate." I set my coffee down. "Okay." "Your grandfather didn't leave a will, Holly. There's nothing for you." She said it flat, like reading a receipt. "The ranch is going to be sold. Your father and I need the money. Our roof has been leaking for 2 years and we cannot afford to fix it. Garrett needs the money. His business has been struggling and he has the kids to think about. You have your fancy job in Denver. You will be fine." I stared at the wall of my apartment. A framed geological map of Colorado, a bookshelf full of field manuals, the life I built without a dollar from them. "Shouldn't we all discuss this?" I said. "Garrett and I are his grandchildren. The ranch was Grandpa's life. There is nothing to discuss. You are not here. You have not been here for years." I pressed my thumb into the edge of the counter until it hurt. Not because I was sad, because I knew, with the certainty of someone who has read soil samples for 10 years, that something was wrong. My grandfather was meticulous. He labeled every jar in his workshop. He kept receipts in a shoebox sorted by month and year since 1978. He filed his own taxes until he was 80. A man like that does not die without a will. "Okay, Mom," I said. "Thank you for letting me know." I hung up. I sat in my Denver apartment for 45 minutes without moving. Then I opened my laptop and searched the Garfield County Public Records database. It took me 11 minutes to find the listing. 200 acres, Garfield County, Oklahoma. Farmhouse, barn, creek frontage, well water. Listed at $620,000. The listing had been active for 6 days. I pulled comparable sales for the area. 200 acres of agricultural land in Garfield County averaged $750,000 to $850,000, depending on water access and outbuildings. My parents had priced it nearly $200,000 below market value. They wanted it gone fast. Before anyone could ask questions, I called Garrett. "Did Grandpa really not leave a will?" His voice went tight. "Mom said no. Why are you always like this, Holly? Why do you always have to make things complicated?" "I am asking a question, Garrett. Mom handled the estate stuff. Talk to her if you have a problem." I hung up and went back to the listing. Something in the fine print caught my eye. 2 words under the property details section, in a font so small it was almost a footnote. Surface rights only. I read those 2 words 3 times, then a 4th time. Then I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. In my line of work, surface rights only means one specific thing. It means someone, at some point, separated the mineral rights from the surface rights. Whoever buys that property gets the house, the barn, the fields, the creek. They get everything you can see. They do not get a single grain of what is underneath. My father texted me that night. "Your mother told me you called Garrett asking questions. Let it go, Holly. You left. Garrett stayed. That is just how it is. I did not reply. I was too busy reading Oklahoma mineral law. The next morning, I pulled the county filing. It cost $8 through the online portal and took 4 minutes to download. Affidavit of heirship. Filed by Dale Myers and Brenda Myers, 11 days after my grandfather's death. The document stated 3 things. 1. Calvin James Myers died intestate, without a valid will. 2. The sole heirs were Dale Myers, son, and his 2 children, Garrett Myers and Holly Myers. 3. Holly Myers had voluntarily relinquished her claim to the estate. I read that third point 6 times. My name, my supposed relinquishment, typed on a legal document I had never seen, never signed, never been asked about. Voluntarily relinquished. I called my colleague Renee Pham. She sat 2 desks from me at the office and had a master's degree in environmental geology and a minor in pre-law. Renee, hypothetical question. If someone files a false affidavit of heirship in Oklahoma, claims there is no will when there is, claims a person relinquished rights when she did not, what happens? Renee was quiet for 3 seconds. That is fraud, Holly. That is a crime. Even if it is family? Especially if it is family, the court takes a dim view of heirs lying about other heirs in probate filings. I thanked her and hung up. I did not tell her it was not hypothetical. I did not call my parents. I did not call Garrett. I did not send a single text. Because confronting them now would give them time to cover tracks, hire a lawyer, build a story. I needed the one person who would have known if my grandfather left a will, and I had a pretty good idea who that person was. When I was 15, my grandfather mentioned a lawyer, not the family lawyer in Enid who handled the farm insurance and the property taxes. A different lawyer, in a different town. My lawyer, Grandpa Cal said. Not theirs. I remembered the name of the town because it sounded like something from a fairy tale. Kingfisher, 30 miles south of Enid, population barely over 5,000. The kind of place where a man could keep a secret simply by filing papers in a different county. I searched, Martin Holloway, attorney, Kingfisher, Oklahoma. First result, Holloway Estate and Mineral Law, a one-man office on Main Street, phone number listed. I called at 8:45 Central Time. A woman answered, warm voice, older, probably his secretary for decades. Holloway Estate Law. This is June. My name is Holly Myers. I believe Mr. Holloway was my grandfather's attorney, Calvin Myers. 3 seconds of silence. Then, oh honey, he has been trying to reach you for 3 months. My hands went cold. 3 months? Since 2 days after the funeral, he sent a certified letter to the ranch address. It came back marked return to sender. He called the ranch phone line. A woman answered, said you had no interest in estate matters and asked him not to call again. My mother. My mother intercepted the letter. My mother told this man I had no interest. June put me through to Martin Holloway. His voice was calm and steady, the way old lawyers sound when they have been waiting for something to happen. Miss Myers, your grandfather left a will, and he left very specific instructions regarding you. I think you should come to my office. How soon can you get to Oklahoma? I booked the first flight I could find. If you have ever had that moment, that phone call that changes everything you thought you know exactly what I felt sitting in my apartment with the phone still warm in my hand. If this story is hitting close to home, take a second to subscribe and drop a comment below. Now let me tell you what was inside that cedar box. I landed in Oklahoma City at 2:14 in the afternoon. I rented a car and drove north on Interstate 35, watching the landscape flatten out into red earth and wheat stubble. Somewhere south of Guthrie, I caught myself gripping the steering wheel hard enough to turn my knuckles white. I loosened my hands and pressed them flat on my thighs at a red light. This was not about emotion. This was about data. I am a geologist. I have spent 10 years reading what is underground based on what is on the surface. I am trained to withhold conclusions until the evidence is complete. So I replayed the facts like core samples, one layer at a time. Fact 1. My grandfather was organized enough to label jars of nails by size and year of purchase. He did not die without a will. Fact 2. My parents filed an affidavit claiming he did. They claimed I relinquished my share. I did not. Fact 3. The ranch listing said, surface rights only. That means someone separated the mineral rights before the sale. In Oklahoma, that requires a recorded deed. Fact 4. An attorney in Kingfisher had been trying to reach me for 3 months. My mother intercepted his letter and his phone call. If this were a geological survey, the conclusion would be straightforward. The surface data does not match the subsurface data. Somebody buried something. I turned off the interstate and onto the state highway toward Kingfisher. The road was narrow, cracked, and lined with red dirt shoulders. I rolled down the window. The air smelled like iron oxide and wild grass and something I could not quite name. Something that smelled like the truth getting closer. I pulled into Kingfisher at 3:58. While I was parking on Main Street, my phone rang. The number on the screen made my stomach tighten. It was the ranch landline, the same number I had called from college dorms and field sites and lab benches for 14 years. The same number my mother answered to tell me about Garrett's football games. I picked up. Holly, it is Mom. I have good news. Her voice was bright, performatively bright. The voice she used when she wanted something documented as cheerful. The house closed yesterday. 6:20, just like the listing. Your father and I are putting our share toward the lake house we have been looking at. Garrett is paying off his business loans. It is such a relief to have this settled. She paused, waiting for me to say congratulations. That sounds great, Mom. It really is. This is what family does, Holly. We take care of each other. I was sitting in a rental car on Main Street in Kingfisher, Oklahoma, 50 yards from the office of my grandfather's attorney, holding a phone connected to a landline that no longer belonged to us. My mother was celebrating the sale of a ranch she had no sole right to sell, using money she divided without asking me, based on an affidavit she knew was false. I am happy for you, I said. Truly. She did not hear the calm in my voice. She mistook it for surrender. She had been doing that my whole life. Well, good, she said. I have to go. Your father wants to drive out to the lake property this afternoon. Love you. She hung up before I could respond. I sat in the car for 1 full minute. Then I walked into Martin Holloway's office. Martin Holloway's office looked like the inside of a history book. Wood paneling the color of dark honey, filing cabinets that had been dented and relabeled 3 times, a window that faced Main Street and let in slanted afternoon light. The floor creaked in 2 places. Martin stood up from behind his desk when I walked in. He was 65, maybe older, with white hair trimmed close and a handshake that told me he had spent decades handling mineral leases and estate disputes. He wore a gray suit that had been cleaned recently, but not bought recently. Miss Myers? He shook my hand. Please sit down. I owe you an apology. For what? For not trying harder to find you. He sat back down. I sent a certified letter to the ranch address 2 days after your grandfather's funeral. It came back marked return to sender. I called the ranch phone number. A woman, your mother, I assume, told me you had no interest in estate matters and asked me not to contact you again. She told you that? She did. I should have pushed harder. Your grandfather was my client for 22 years. He came to me specifically because he wanted an attorney outside of Enid, outside of Garfield County. He did not want his family to know. I sat in the chair across from his desk. The leather was cracked and warm from the sun. Mr. Holloway, did my grandfather leave a will? He looked at me with the kind of patience that comes from years of delivering answers people have been waiting for. He did, Miss Myers. He updated it 18 months before he died, and he left very specific provisions regarding you. He reached behind his desk and pulled out a small cedar box. I recognized it immediately. Dark wood, brass latch, barely bigger than a cigar box. The same box that had sat on the right corner of my grandfather's desk for as long as I could remember. The box my mother said Dale had thrown out. Martin set it on the desk between us. Your grandfather gave this to me in January of last year. He drove to Kingfisher himself. 83 years old, still driving that old Ford. He told me to keep it until the time came. I reached out and opened the latch. The smell hit me first. Cedar and pipe tobacco. The exact scent of my grandfather's bedroom, concentrated into a space the size of a shoebox. Inside were 3 items: a will, 8 pages, notarized, dated September 14th, 2024. A mineral deed, 2 pages, also notarized, same date. And a handwritten note on a piece of lined paper torn from a yellow legal pad. Martin let me read in silence. The will was straightforward. Calvin James Myers left the surface property, the house, the barn, the 200 acres of land, to his heirs equally. That meant Dale, and through Dale, Garrett and me. But the mineral deed was separate, filed with the Garfield County Clerk on September 14th, 2024, 6 months before my grandfather died. It transferred all mineral rights, subsurface rights, and extraction rights beneath the 200 acres to one person. Holly Ann Myers. Me. Only me. I looked up at Martin. He nodded. Your grandfather separated the mineral estate from the surface estate. The mineral deed was recorded. It is public record. Whatever your parents sold, and I understand they sold the ranch for $620,000, they sold only the surface. I unfolded the handwritten note. My grandfather's handwriting, shaky but legible, the letters pressed hard into the paper like he wanted the words to last. Holly girl, they will sell the house. Do not let them sell what is underneath. I set the note down on the desk. My hands were steady. My voice was not. Mr. Holloway, what exactly does this mean, legally? Martin leaned forward. He had clearly been waiting to explain this. In Oklahoma, mineral rights are a separate estate. They can be owned, sold, leased, and inherited independently from the surface. When your grandfather filed that mineral deed in September, he legally severed the subsurface from the surface, 2 separate properties, 2 separate owners. And when my parents sold the ranch, they sold the surface, the house, the barn, the fields, everything above ground. They cannot sell what was not theirs. The mineral rights were already transferred to you before your grandfather died. What about the affidavit of heirship? Martin's expression tightened. The affidavit claims your grandfather died intestate. He did not. It claims you relinquished your share. You did not. The affidavit covers only the surface estate, because the mineral deed was filed and recorded before his death, but the false statements in that affidavit are a separate legal concern. I sat with that for a moment. My parents had filed a document claiming there was no will. A will existed. They claimed I gave up my rights. I never did. They sold a property and split the money. They kept what was on top. They could not touch what was underneath. What is under the land? I asked. Martin looked at me and smiled. Not a lawyer smile, a real one. Miss Myers, that is your area of expertise. Not mine, but your grandfather once told me, and these are his exact words. That dirt is worth more than the house. I suggest you find out if he was right. I drove to the ranch the next morning. The sold sign was still up at the end of the driveway. The new owners had not moved in yet. Closing was recent, and the house sat empty. The windows were dark. The barn leaned east, same as always. I parked on the county road shoulder and walked the perimeter on public easement. I did not need to go inside. I needed what was outside, what was underneath. I had brought collection vials, a hand auger, and a field geology kit from my rental car. Standard equipment. The kind of thing I packed in my work truck every Monday morning. But this time it was personal. This time the dirt was mine. I took soil samples from 3 locations: the north field, where the clay was densest, the creek bed, where erosion exposed deeper strata, and the southwest corner, where my grandfather used to point at the ground and say, "Something is different about this patch, Holly girl." The red Oklahoma clay filled each vial like wet paint. Iron oxide gave it that color. But iron was not what I was looking for. I held the last vial up to the morning sun. The sample from the southwest corner had a slightly different texture. Finer grain, lighter weight, a faint greenish-gray tint mixed into the red. I had seen that tint before. In lithium-bearing clay formations in Nevada, in Arkansas, in the Smackover Formation. I sealed the vials and labeled them with GPS coordinates, depth, and date. Then I called Renee in Denver. I need you to run these through the ICP-MS, full elemental analysis, flag anything in the lithium-boron-potassium family. Holly, what did you find? I looked out at the 200 acres of red dirt and wheat stubble, my grandfather's land, my grandfather's gift. I am not sure yet, but my grandfather was. I flew back to Denver that night. The soil samples went into the lab the next morning. For 2 weeks, I worked my regular job during the day and researched Oklahoma lithium deposits at night. The data was there if you knew where to look. The United States Geological Survey had flagged Garfield County in a 2021 report on clay-hosted lithium potential. The concentrations were not as high as Nevada or Arkansas, but they were significant, especially with new direct lithium extraction technology making lower-grade deposits economically viable. I pulled every published paper on lithium-bearing clay in the southern Great Plains. I cross-referenced geological maps with my grandfather's parcel boundaries. The southwest corner of the ranch, the same patch he always pointed at, sat directly over a formation that 3 separate studies had identified as lithium-enriched. My grandfather was not a geologist, but he was a man who spent 60 years walking the same 200 acres. He noticed things. The way the soil dried differently in that corner. The way the well water tasted slightly metallic. The way nothing grew quite as tall in that southwest patch. He did not know the word lithium, but he knew something was down there. Garrett texted me during the second week. "Hey Holly, Mom says you haven't called. Everything good?" I looked at the message for a long time. He was checking. Not on me, on whether I suspected anything. "All good," I replied. "Just busy with work." 3 days later, Renee called me at 4:12 in the afternoon. I was at my desk reviewing a water quality report for a client in Boulder. Her voice was different, the tone people use when they know the number before they say it. "Holly, you need to come look at these numbers." Renee had the ICP-MS readouts printed on 3 sheets of paper, one for each sample site. She had highlighted the lithium values in yellow. She did not need to. They jumped off the page. "All 3 sites show elevated lithium concentrations," she said, pointing at the numbers. "The North Field sample is moderate, consistent with general clay lithium in the region. The creek bed is higher. And the southwest corner, Holly, the southwest corner is exceptional." I looked at the numbers. Lithium concentrations in the southwest sample were 3 times higher than regional averages. The boron and potassium ratios confirmed it. This was not contamination or anomaly. This was a genuine lithium-bearing clay deposit. Renee pulled up a mapping overlay on her screen. I extrapolated the distribution pattern based on geological models of similar formations. If the concentration gradient holds across even 60% of the acreage, and based on the 3 sample points it should, we are looking at a significant deposit. How significant? She turned her chair to face me. Conservative estimate, using current lithium carbonate pricing and standard extraction recovery rates, 3.8 million. If the concentration holds at the southwest corner level across a wider area, you are looking at up to 5.2 million. Midpoint? $4.7 million? I sat down in the chair next to her desk. The red Oklahoma dirt that had packed under my fingernails as a child, the same dirt my grandfather held in his palms and studied in the afternoon light, was worth $4.7 million. Renee watched me. "Holly, who owns this land?" "My parents sold the surface for $620,000, but the mineral rights belong to me." She blinked. "Your grandfather?" "My grandfather. He was not just a rancher. He was a man who paid attention to his dirt." The next day, I retained a mineral rights attorney in Oklahoma City. Her name was Diane Carver, and she had spent 23 years handling split estate cases in the Anadarko Basin. She knew mineral law the way I knew soil composition, by instinct backed by documentation. I sent her everything: the will, The mineral deed, the affidavit of heirship, the geological survey results, the county records showing the mineral deed was filed 6 months before my grandfather died. She called me back in 2 hours. Miss Myers, this is about as clean as a mineral separation gets. Your grandfather did everything right. The deed is properly executed, properly witnessed, properly filed. The severance was recorded before his death, which means the mineral rights never entered his estate. They were already yours. And the affidavit? That is a separate issue. The affidavit states that your grandfather died without a will. He did not. It states that you relinquished your claim. You did not. At minimum, this is a fraudulent filing. Your parents' attorney, whoever prepared it, has exposure as well. She drafted 3 documents. First, a cease and desist letter to Dale and Brenda Myers regarding the false affidavit. Second, a formal notification to the ranch buyers that the mineral rights were held separately and belonged to me. Third, preliminary paperwork for leasing the mineral rights to a lithium extraction company. One more question, I said before we hung up. I do not want to destroy my parents. I want them to understand what they lost, and I want the rest of my family to know the truth. Diane paused. Miss Myers, with all due respect, they did not lose anything. They never had it. I thought about that after I hung up. She was right. You cannot lose what was never yours. A week later, I opened Facebook for the first time in months. My mother had posted 11 photos. The new lake house. A 2-bedroom cabin on Keystone Lake, about 90 minutes from Enid. Blue shutters. A dock that jutted 20 feet into brown water. Brenda was standing on the dock in the first photo, arms wide, smiling like a woman who had gotten away with something. The caption read, "Blessed beyond measure. Family first, always. This is the legacy Daddy Cal would have wanted." Daddy Cal. She called him Daddy Cal. The man whose will she hid. The man whose attorney she told to stop calling. The man whose cedar box she claimed was thrown out. Garrett had posted too. A new truck. White, 4-door, lifted. Caption, "Finally getting things back on track. Grateful for family." He tagged Brenda in the post. 14 likes, 2 heart reacts. The comments from extended family made my stomach turn. So happy for you all. Cal would be so proud. Family sticks together. I closed the laptop. I walked to my desk and opened the cedar box. The smell of cedar and pipe tobacco filled my apartment. I read the note again. Same shaky handwriting, same hard-pressed letters. "Holly girl, they will sell the house. Do not let them sell what is underneath." I had the geological survey. I had the will. I had the mineral deed. I had an attorney who specialized in exactly this kind of case. I picked up my phone and called Diane Carver. "Send the letters." They were posting lake house photos while my attorney was drafting cease and desist letters. If you think this is about to get interesting, you are right. Keep watching. The letters went out on a Monday. Certified mail. Signature required. My mother signed for hers on Wednesday at 11:22 in the morning. I know the exact time because the postal receipt came back electronically to Diane's office. 47 minutes later, my phone started ringing. Brenda called first. I let it go to voicemail. Dale called next. Voicemail. Garrett called 3 times in 12 minutes. On the 4th call, I picked up. "What the hell is this, Holly?" His voice was high and tight, the way it got when he was scared. I had heard that voice once before, the night his landscaping business lost its biggest client. "Some lawyer is saying Grandpa left a will? That the mineral rights are separate? What is going on?" "He did leave a will, Garrett. He left it with his attorney in Kingfisher. The same attorney Mom told that I had no interest in estate matters." Silence. 5 seconds. 10. I did not know about that. About the attorney? Or about the will? About any of it. Mom handled the estate. She said there was no will. And you did not question it. You took the money, bought a truck, and posted about it on Facebook. More silence. When he spoke again, the anger was gone. In its place was something worse. The sound of a man who had just realized the ground under him was not as solid as he thought. "We need to talk about this as a family, Holly." I had waited 3 months for someone in my family to say the word family and mean it as something other than a weapon. This was not that moment. "You can talk to my attorney. Her number is on the letter." I hung up and went back to work. Brenda called the next morning at 6:51. She had not slept. I could hear it in her voice, the rawness, the thin edge of someone who had spent the night calculating exactly how much trouble she was in. But she did not lead with remorse. She led with the playbook. "How could you do this to your own mother, Holly? After everything I have done for you? I raised you. I fed you. I drove you to school every single day. And this is how you repay me. With lawyers and threats?" "Mom, I did not file a false affidavit." "You did. Your grandfather was confused at the end. He was 84 years old. That will is not valid." The will was notarized 18 months before he died. He drove himself to Kingfisher. He was lucid. His attorney will testify to that. "You are tearing this family apart over money, Holly." I let that sentence hang in the air. Because there it was. The full Darvo rotation in under 2 minutes. Deny the will is real. Attack me for being disloyal. Reverse the victim and the offender. My mother had torn a family apart over $620,000, and she was telling me I was the problem. "Mom, I am not tearing anything apart. I am enforcing a legal document that Grandpa filed before he died. We will fight this in court. Your father and I will fight this." "That is your right. But the mineral deed is already filed with Garfield County. It is public record. It has been public record since September of 2024. She hung up without saying goodbye. I noticed she did not deny knowing about the will. She only said it was not valid. That told me everything I needed to know. Dale called 2 days later. His approach was different. Softer. Slower. The voice he used when he wanted something without Brenda in the room. "Holly girl." He used the nickname. Grandpa Cal's nickname. It hit me exactly where he intended it to. "Hi, Dad. Your mother is very upset. She has not eaten in 2 days. She is not sleeping. This whole situation, it is killing her." I waited. "Can we just sit down and talk about this? No lawyers, no letters. Just family." "Dad, did you know there was a will when you signed the affidavit?" Long pause. I could hear him breathing. A television in the background. The Weather Channel. Same as always. "Your mother handled all of that. I just signed where she told me to sign." "You signed a document that said Grandpa died without a will. You signed a document that said I gave up my rights. Did you read it before you signed?" Another pause. Longer this time. "We thought it was the right thing. We needed the money, Holly, the roof, Garrett's loans, your mother's medical bills from last year. We could not wait months for probate." For a moment, just a moment, I heard something real in his voice. Not manipulation, not performance. Fatigue. The sound of a 60-year-old man who had spent his entire marriage following orders and was now realizing where those orders had led him. "Dad, I understand you needed the money, I do. But you cannot sell what was never yours." "How much is it worth, Holly? The mineral stuff?" $4.7 million. He did not say anything for 22 seconds. Then he hung up. I called Martin Holloway the following week. "Martin, when is the Myers family reunion?" "Memorial Day weekend. Same as every year. Your grandfather attended 53 consecutive reunions. He told me once it was the only family obligation he still enjoyed." "Where is it this year?" "Garrett's new lake property, from what I understand." I almost laughed. The reunion would be held at a property purchased with money from the sale of a ranch, a sale built on a false affidavit, a hidden will, and a family that decided I did not count. "I want to go," I said. Martin was quiet for a moment. "May I ask why?" "Because my extended family was told 2 lies. First, that Grandpa did not leave a will. Second, that I did not want anything from the estate. I need to correct both of those statements in front of the people who heard them." "You could let the court proceedings do that?" A court proceeding takes months. In the meantime, my Aunt Donna thinks I abandoned the family. My cousins think Grandpa left nothing. The narrative my mother built is the only one they know. I need to change that narrative. In person. Before it sets. Martin considered this. Your grandfather would have liked that. He was a firm believer in saying things to people's faces. I called Diane Carver next. I will need you on standby the weekend of the reunion, but I am doing this part myself. She agreed. 3 weeks. That was how long I had to prepare for the most important presentation of my career. And unlike the presentations I gave at work, where the stakes were soil quality assessments and environmental impact reports, this one was about something I could not quantify with a mass spectrometer. This one was about the truth. I prepared for the family reunion the way I prepare for a client presentation. Methodically, with documentation. I printed 5 copies of each document. The will, the mineral deed, the geological survey report with the $4.7 million estimate, the affidavit of heirship showing Dale and Brenda's signatures next to a statement they knew was false, the county records showing the mineral deed was filed on September 14th, 2024, 6 months before my grandfather died. I organized them into folders. I stapled where stapling was needed. I highlighted the key sections with a yellow marker, the kind you can buy at any office supply store for $1.19. Renee stopped by my desk on Thursday. You are bringing all of that to a family barbecue? It is a reunion. Holly, you could just let the lawyers handle this. Diane Carver is very good at what she does. Diane will handle the court filing. But this part, the family part, is mine. My grandfather spent 50 years at those reunions being told his land was worth nothing. Being told he was a stubborn old man who should have sold decades ago. I owe it to him to show them what it was really worth. Renee looked at the cedar box sitting on my desk. The brass latch was tarnished from decades of handling. The wood still smelled faintly of tobacco when you lifted the lid. You are bringing that too? That is the most important thing I am bringing. On Friday night, I packed everything into a carry-on. Documents, folders, highlighters, 1 jar of red Oklahoma soil, 1 cedar box. I flew to Oklahoma on Saturday morning. Garrett's lake property was modest. A cabin with a covered porch, a stretch of mowed grass sloping down to the water, and a dock that did not look entirely level. He had strung lights between 2 posts. Someone had set up a folding table with a sheet cake that said, Myers family. 35 people. Aunts, uncles, cousins, second cousins. Kids running barefoot in the grass. A speaker playing country music from somebody's phone. The smell of charcoal and lighter fluid. I pulled into the gravel driveway at 1:15 in the afternoon. I wore slacks and a blouse. Not casual, not formal. The outfit of a woman who had come to say something. Brenda saw me first. She was carrying a bowl of potato salad from the cabin to the table. She stopped walking. The bowl froze in her hands. Dale stood up from his lawn chair so fast it folded behind him. Garrett walked over, beer in hand. I didn't think you'd come. Grandpa never missed a reunion, neither will I. The extended family greeted me like they always did. Warm, slightly guilty for not staying in better touch. Aunt Donna hugged me twice. Uncle Stu shook my hand and said I looked just like Grandpa Cal. Donna pulled me aside near the punch table. I am so sorry about your grandpa, honey. Your mama said you didn't want anything from the estate. She said you told her Denver was more important. I looked at my aunt. 61 years old, retired school teacher, Cal's youngest sister. She deserved the truth. That is not exactly what happened, Aunt Donna, but I will get to that. I let 2 hours pass. I helped set up tables. I ate potato salad. And then I asked if I could say a few words about Grandpa. Garrett had set up a small area near the dock, a patch of flat ground with a view of the lake. Someone had put a photo of Grandpa Cal on a folding table, next to a candle that kept blowing out in the wind. It was the only tribute they had planned. I stood beside the table. 35 faces looked at me. Some were holding plates. Some were holding drinks. The kids had stopped running. I want to talk about Grandpa Cal, I said. Most of you knew him as a quiet man who loved his land. That is true. But I want to tell you something about him that most people did not know. I talked about the summers on the ranch, about the red dirt, about how he would hold a handful of clay up to the light and tell me there was a whole world underneath, about how he drove me to my college orientation in his old Ford because my parents said it was too far, about how he was the only person in this family who ever told me I would be something. After Grandpa died, I said, my parents told me he did not leave a will. I looked at Brenda. She was standing by the cabin steps, arms crossed. Dale was next to her, staring at the ground. They told me there was nothing left for me. They sold the ranch for $620,000. A murmur moved through the crowd. Some of them knew the ranch had been sold. None of them knew the number. They filed an affidavit of heirship with Garfield County. That document states, and I have copies if anyone wants to see, that I voluntarily relinquished my claim to the estate. I did not. I was never asked. The murmur turned into silence. I reached into my bag and placed the cedar box on the table next to Grandpa Cal's photo. Grandpa did leave a will. He left it with his attorney in Kingfisher, a man named Martin Holloway, who served him for 22 years. Martin tried to contact me after the funeral. He sent a certified letter. My mother intercepted it and sent it back. I looked at Brenda. Her jaw was tight. Her eyes were fixed on the cedar box. Martin called the ranch phone. My mother told him I had no interest in estate matters. I opened the cedar box. The brass latch clicked. The smell of cedar and pipe tobacco drifted across the table. Aunt Donna covered her mouth. This will was filed and notarized on September 14th, 2024, 18 months before Grandpa died. He was lucid. He drove himself to Kingfisher to file it. I held up the document. 8 pages. Notarized seal visible even from the back of the crowd. The will leaves the surface property, the house, the barn, the land, to his heirs equally. That includes me. I was never informed. I was never included in the sale. Garrett's wife, standing near the grill, put her hand over her mouth. Uncle Stu set his drink down on the ground. But the will was not the only thing Grandpa filed that day. He also filed a separate document, a mineral deed. It transferred all mineral rights, all subsurface rights, and all extraction rights beneath that 200 acres to one person. I paused. Me. The lake was still. The wind had stopped. 35 people held their breath. I am a geologist, I said. It is what I do for a living. So when I found out the mineral rights were mine, I did what any geologist would do. I tested the soil. I pulled out the geological survey report. 12 pages, bound with a clear cover, the logo of a certified geological firm in the upper left corner. I took soil samples from 3 locations on the ranch. I ran them through an inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometer. The results confirmed what my grandfather suspected his whole life. I reached into my bag one more time and set a jar on the table. Red Oklahoma soil, sealed with a twist cap, labeled with GPS coordinates in my handwriting. This dirt, the same dirt I played in as a kid, the same dirt Grandpa held in his hands and told me was special, contains lithium-bearing clay. The geological survey values the extractable lithium at $4.7 million. Silence. Complete, breathless silence. The speaker had stopped playing. Someone had turned it off. I looked at my mother. She was standing perfectly still, arms at her sides now, the posture of a woman who had just been told the house she sold for $620,000 was sitting on top of something worth 8 times more. You told me, and I remember your exact words. Grandpa didn't leave a will, Holly. There's nothing for you. I held the jar of red soil at waist height. There was. It was under your feet the whole time. Brenda stepped forward. This is ridiculous. You are lying. You made this up because you are jealous. I set the survey report on the table, open to the results page. This is not an opinion, Mom. It is data. Brenda turned to the family. The instinct was automatic. When cornered, she reached for an audience. She is doing this to hurt us. She has always been ungrateful. She left this family, and now she comes back with lawyers and fake documents to take what is ours. Nobody responded. Aunt Donna looked at the ground. Uncle Stu shook his head slowly. Garrett's wife walked toward the cabin without a word. Garrett stepped forward. His voice cracked on the first syllable. Holly, we can work something out. We are family. You signed the sale documents, Garrett. You took your share. You knew Mom said there was no will, and you did not question it. I did not know about the affidavit. I swear I did not. You did not know because you did not ask. Because it was easier to take the money and buy a truck. Dale spoke for the first time. His voice was low and tired. Your grandfather always favored you, Holly. He always did. I looked at my father, the man who signed everything Brenda put in front of him, the man who told me the same sentence my whole life as though it explained everything. You told me. You left. Garrett stayed. You are right, Dad. I left. And Grandpa made sure I would come back for what was mine. I did not raise my voice. I did not point. I did not cry. My hands were steady on the table. My voice was level and clear, the same voice I used when presenting survey results to a board of engineers. Brenda was the one shouting. Dale was the one whose hands shook. Garrett was the one who could not look at me. The power had shifted. It was not coming back. I closed the cedar box. I put it back in my bag. I am not here to punish anyone. I am here because Grandpa asked me to protect what he left me. And I will. I spoke to the family now, not to my parents. My attorney has already notified the buyers of the ranch that the mineral rights are held separately. They understand. Split estate law is clear in Oklahoma. The lease negotiations with a lithium extraction company begin next month. As for the affidavit, my attorney has filed a formal challenge with Garfield County. The rest is between my parents and the court. I picked up the jar of soil and held it for a moment. Then I set it back down on the table next to Grandpa Cal's photo. I wanted you to hear this from me. Not from a court filing. Not from a Facebook post. Grandpa Cal loved this family. He also loved the truth. And he had a right to decide what happened to his land. Brenda sat down on the cabin steps. Her face was red and wet. You are destroying this family, Holly. I looked at her. My mother. The woman who raised me, fed me, drove me to school. The woman who intercepted a dead man's last wishes because she wanted $620,000. I am not destroying anything, Mom. I am building on what Grandpa gave me. I picked up my bag. The cedar box was inside. The survey was on the table, if anyone wanted to read it. The jar of red soil sat next to Cal's photograph, glowing in the afternoon light. I walked toward my car. The gravel crunched under my shoes. Behind me, I could hear the low hum of 35 people processing what they had just witnessed. No one stopped me. No one called my name. Except Aunt Donna. She caught up to me at the driver's side door. She was crying, but she was smiling too. The expression of someone who finally understands something they had suspected for years. Your grandpa would be proud of you, Holly. I looked at her. Cal's youngest sister. The one who sent me birthday cards every year. The only one who did. He was the only one who ever said that, Aunt Donna. She hugged me. It lasted 4 seconds. Then she let go and walked back toward the lake. I got in the car. In the rearview mirror, I could see Brenda sitting on the cabin steps, Dale standing over her with his hands in his pockets. Garrett had not moved from his chair near the dock. His beer sat on the armrest, untouched, warming in the sun. My phone buzzed. Renee. How did it go? I showed them the data. The data speaks for itself. I pulled out of the gravel driveway and onto the 2-lane road that led back to the highway. The Oklahoma sky was wide and red at the edges, the sun dropping low over flat ground. The dirt on the shoulder of the road was the same red as the dirt in the jar I had left on the table. Same dirt. Different value, depending on whether you looked at the surface or what was underneath. 6 weeks passed. In those 6 weeks, the following things happened. Diane Carver finalized the lease agreement with a lithium extraction company based in Tulsa. They specialize in direct lithium extraction, a closed-loop process that pulls lithium from clay without strip mining. The lease terms included an upfront signing bonus and annual royalties tied to production volume. The first royalty payment was projected within 12 months. The formal challenge to the affidavit of heirship moved through the Garfield County Court. Dale and Brenda hired a lawyer out of Oklahoma City, not a mineral rights specialist, but a general practitioner who charged less. Their attorney reviewed the evidence, the notarized will, the recorded mineral deed, the testimony of Martin Holloway, and recommended they settle rather than contest. My parents were facing potential civil liability for filing a false sworn document. Garrett called twice. I did not answer either time. He texted, "Can we talk? I did not know about the affidavit, I swear." I replied once, "You signed the sale documents, Garrett. You knew Mom said there was no will, and you did not question it. When you are ready to acknowledge that, we can talk." He did not reply. Brenda sent a long email, 4 paragraphs. The subject line was, "You have always been selfish." The body was a catalog of sacrifices she claimed to have made, driving me to school, buying my first pair of glasses, attending one of my college graduations. She ended with, "Your father and I gave you everything, and this is how you repay us." I did not respond. There was nothing to respond to. The documents spoke for themselves. The ranch buyers were gracious, a retired couple from Edmond who wanted acreage for horses. When Diane notified them about the mineral rights, they understood immediately. "We bought a beautiful ranch," the husband said. "You own what is underneath. We can coexist." I drove past the ranch one last time before flying back to Denver. The kitchen landline number was disconnected. The new owners had installed a digital phone system. The old wall-mounted phone with the curly cord, the one Grandpa Cal had put in himself in 1983, was gone. That old connection was severed, same as everything else. I kept the cedar box on my desk in Denver. The note from Cal was taped inside the lid, where I could read it every morning. My grandfather knew something about this family that I was too young to see. The people who shout the loudest about loyalty are usually the first ones to sell you out. He did not fight them. He did not argue. He went to a lawyer in a different town, signed a piece of paper, and made sure that when they took the surface I would still have what was underneath. He did not leave me money. He left me leverage. And the difference between those two things is the difference between a gift and a legacy. That is my story. A ranch sold behind my back, and a grandfather who planned ahead. If this